There are a lot of advantages to joining a living history group, and one of the things is you don't have to rely on yourself to be the sole person for gathering information. You can take and you can bounce things off other people. Hey, I found this, and maybe they did too. So, and then sometimes the best information you're going to find is when you're looking at this and you're going at it, and you go lateral. You find something over here, and then you bring it to the group, and maybe one of them said, I found this too, but then I found this too, and so you go. It's just amazing when you have a collective group of information. The things that everybody brings to the table, your group just grows leaps and bounds. So it's a pretty good thing. It's one of the things that I like the most about what we do. So it's finding somebody to hang out with, somebody to call and to share information with.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Getting Started course or series, having to do with getting started with living history. I'm John Townsend. Across from me here is Kevin Carter. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be talking about the next step in getting started with living history and reenacting. What's our topic for today?
Well, it's the second step that we're outlining for people who are just getting started.
Right.
And that is connecting.
Yeah, you really want to get connected after you've decided, yes, I'm going to do this. Finding a group, finding a person, finding a site, finding some way of connecting with something that's already existing is really going to jumpstart the process very rapidly.
Right. Trying to get started by yourself, Well, it might be difficult to kind of overcome the barrier of introducing yourself and actually say, I'm interested in reenacting mm-hmm. or living history. Doing that, taking the leap, right. Getting over that barrier can save so much time and right. so much effort, rather than try and do all of the research on your own and try and make all the right decisions. And
right. Most people don't do this. They aren't an island. They don't do this by themselves anyway. I mean, some people do reenacting sort of by themselves, but the vast majority of people want to have a connection with other people. They want to interact with the public. Each one of those settings is going to you're going to be dealing with other people anyway. So it's best to make these connections right away. And the quality, the kind of connection you make is going to make all the difference. And the great part is that the community of living history reenactors, living history people in general, are amazingly helpful, amazingly friendly. They really want other people to do this thing with them, so they will welcome you with open arms.
Right, yeah. So, and that's something that you can't really communicate well enough. I mean, right. it's the living history community is an amazing group of people who really want to see more people get involved.
Right, and do not be intimidated by what some of these people might look like, or they might be putting on a person who is intimidating. There's a lot of different things that can be scary about certain people.
Especially the First Nations people or the Native American interpreters.
Right.
Boy, it's like they paint themselves up and...
It can look downright scary.
Absolutely.
Right.
But then when you start talking to them...
Yeah.
They're
all wonderful,
almost
folks.
Startling.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So,
yeah, the only time you might have a difficulty is if you run into the very rare person who is doing their first person and they don't want to get out of it, mm-hmm. and so you need to connect with them later on. Usually, they'll try to point you to someone within their persona. They'll try to point you to someone who can interact with you like you expect to be interacted with. So, that's the only time when you might approach them and you don't get the kind of answer you expect. But they're still trying to point you to someone who can help you immediately.
So, John, where would we suggest people connect? Where are these points or places where people can go to actually start connecting?
I would say, there's a lot of different places. the first place to look for is a local group, right? If there's a group of reenactors who is already doing something especially that you're interested in, even if they aren't doing something specifically that you're interested in, sometimes just getting started, you're best getting started in a local group, and then once you've really got your feet under you, you can actually branch off and go to something that you are really specifically interested in. So it's like, well, I really want to do, I'm trying to think of something really specific. I really want to do French and Indian, but there's only a Revolutionary War unit, or there's only some other kind of unit that's close to you. It's you want to get someone local that you can get connected with. Then you can get your feet under you. Okay, I know how this works. I know how to do my research. I know how to, and then you can branch off and do that thing you're really specifically interested in.
Mm-hmm. Now, for someone who's not already connected with the community, how would they find someone? How would they find a local group?
Well, that can be really tricky. I mean, there are some online tools. Obviously, you can just plain and do some straight Google searches for reenacting groups, but some of them are kind of hidden. They don't have great websites, or they might not have the best way. I mean, you might even try looking on Facebook or some of those other tools besides Googling it. We're working on a tool at Living History Network specifically for that. So there's a
livinghistorynetwork.com.
Right. And that is the directory section. There's an events section, but there's a directory section that's meant to look for historic sites, and hopefully we want to get reenactment groups. So, and you can search by location. So you can say, oh, here's my zip code. Show me what's within 100 miles of where I'm at, or 50 miles, or whatever. So that kind of tool we're working on, and that's getting better as we go.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't populate that fast enough. We're trying very hard, dedicating some resources to that. Right. And so just as time goes on, that's going to just get better and better and better.
And if you know of any groups that aren't connected with that, you should have them look that up. It's very easy to get onto that directory.
Right. Yeah. The groups are starting to find it, and the events are starting to find it. Right. And they're starting to enter their own events,
and that'll build very
that.
quickly once that's going. So there's local groups. There's also even if you can't do exactly things with them, there are virtual groups that will at least help you get started. It's not as good as having somebody standing right beside you, but at least it's help, it's encouragement. So virtual groups.
Yeah. Well, Facebook is a good place to find those.
Exactly.
They have these. They have communities there, and you just start searching.
Yep.
And look for, use keywords, reenacting or Flintlock area if you're interested in that.
Living history,
exactly. And I think you would be surprised at how many groups have their own presence there. So, and that's a great way to get plugged in.
And what you're trying to find here is, if you can, an individual mentor. You want to find an individual within a group so that you can really connect personally, and they'll help you personally. I mean, it's still good if there's just a group of people, but you aren't connected with one really specifically. I mean, that's still very helpful. But when you can find one person that stands beside you, can always ask them a question, that's really going to get you a long way in a hurry.
If we can go back to livinghistorynetwork.com for a moment, as we develop that directory, another thing that we will be including on that are historic sites. And so, you type in your zip code to find what is around you, the groups that are around you, the events, but also historic sites, those outdoor museums where a part of the attraction is the living history component. And those sites will often have very active volunteer programs.
Yeah, I really think that historic sites are probably one of the best ways. Even if you're not interested in that particular historic site, if you ask them about local groups, they'll likely be able to point you into some of these other directions, or even individual mentors.
Yeah.
But the sites themselves are actively trying to get people interested
Right.
and help them with what they're doing. So they're really interested in people who are showing an interest. So
We're a member of the Meta organization of a lot of these outdoor museums and the conferences. They have these breakout sessions on how to develop your volunteer program, and so it's on the mind of it. If it's not on the mind of one of those historic sites, it should be. Right. But it's a very hot topic among historic sites, bringing volunteers in. And, John, it was just a few weeks ago, we went to Martin Station down in Ewing, Virginia. They had an event down there called the Raid on Martin Station. It's a premier event. It was a fantastic experience. Incredible people down there, and we had an opportunity to talk to the head ranger there, Billy Heck. Who actually his first person persona is Martin.
Captain Martin.
Yeah, Captain Martin.
Yeah.
He spoke with us a little bit about their volunteer program. And how about let's play that clip.
Here at Martin Station, we have an absolute incredible first-person program that our volunteers help carry out, our paid staff help carry out, and what we really try to do is we try to involve anyone who's interested in the hobby to come here and visit with us at Martin Station. And what we don't want to do is be intimidating, because some people, and we've had this happen here and at other sites I've been associated with, we run a tight event. We jury people. We make sure that they have the right clothing, the right accoutrements. So a lot of people will see that sometimes and they're like, well, I don't think I can make the cut. But that's not what this is about. That's not what living history is about. What we do is we want you to come here, and if you don't have the right clothing and accoutrements, we will, here at Martin Station, we'll actually we have a clothing bank, so we will help you get in for the weekend and learn. There's a lot of great people here you can learn from. At the Raid of Martin Station, we have 300, 400, 500 volunteers here, and even during our weekly musters, every second weekend of every month, we have a muster here, and we have a tremendous volunteer staff. They come from North Carolina, Georgia, Ohio. They come here every second weekend, and they've put in thousands of hours with us. And their job is to teach you. So we're a living history community, but we also need to be a teaching community. If you live in California, or if you live in North Carolina or Georgia or wherever it may be, and you can't make it to Martin Station, go to the nearest event that they have near your home. Find a good event. I would recommend finding a juried event with knowledgeable people who's gonna set you on the right path to true living history. Listen to them, learn from them, and that's what it's all about, is learning, because we have to grow the next generation. People like me and friends that I've been associated with for all of these years, we're getting older now, so our job is to teach. And so I don't want anyone, especially coming to Martin Station, I don't want anyone to feel like they can't be here, because we will get you here. We will help you get in. We will get you involved, and then you can learn. And it's your job to learn. To take it as far as you want to take it. But find what you're interested in, and just the sky's the limit after that.
I really enjoyed listening or hearing that, John. Billy's such a great guy.
He is.
Enjoyed getting to know him so much while we were down there. There were some terms that he used that I think we might want to explain. Mm-hmm. And in fact, there's one term that I used earlier, first person persona or interpretation. Tell the viewers what that means and what it means compared to other types of interpretation.
Well, there's other people that'll explain this better than me, but I'll do a quick explanation here. There's multiple different ways of doing reenacting or interpreting history, what we call living history, and probably the highest level, the one that's most immersive, is where the interpreter is actually, I don't want to use a pretending, but they are the person in history, and they try to stay that person in history. They try to be that person, and it's it's a cross between acting and a couple of other things that's going on there. And some people do that for the public, and other people do that internally so that they can learn more. So they're experiencing history as much as they can as a person in history. But we have to remember this is very high level.
Yes.
And some people aren't interested in doing that.
Right.
They're really interested in a kind of a pulled back version, which is typically third person, where you say they did things like this. There's all kinds of different ways of doing this. Most people do not try starting out saying, I want to do first person. That's not typically how someone starts out.
It often takes years to
Yeah.
get to that point.
Right. At least to do it really well. And this is meant to be fun. And not intimidating. He used that word intimidating in there,
Right,
because
right.
it is intimidating. We talked about, we mentioned even earlier today that it was some people look intimidating. Some of these first person interpreters, they can be interacting with them can be intimidating at times. We don't want you to feel that way. You don't have to feel that way, and getting started doesn't have to be that. And there were some great points there. I mean, he talked about them really encouraging people. We want people. They have hundreds of volunteers that come from all over the place just to have fun there. They take them under their wing. They train them. They want to teach them. It's all about learning.
Martin Station actually has over 1,000 people on their volunteer list. They've never had all of those people show up at once, but it's apparently not unusual to have a couple hundred. Yeah. It's really an amazing program, and Billy's attitude. He's welcoming. Yeah. The whole operation down there, and we're talking about Martin Station, but they're not unique in that way. So many historic sites have these active volunteer programs where they're looking for people, and it's like, you don't have experience? That's okay. Come. We'll even, and Billy talked about the what did he call it? The clothing chest or closet, where they have used clothing, and we'll set you up. You don't have your own clothing, and that's an excellent way of getting your feet wet. Showing up, making a phone call, saying, I'm really interested, but I've never done this. I talked to a man on the phone just this week who did that very thing, and 30 years later, he is the curator of the museum.
There we go. He went from a person walking off the street and putting on clothes to a curator. Amazing story. To get started, you really just need to dabble in it, and then all of a sudden, you really need to experience just one weekend, and you really want to do it. There was some other key things here. He talks about community,
right? That
you want to get connected with the community, and that's what this episode's all about: community. And he mentions this word jury, a juried event, and there are two different ways you can take this. If you come into an idea of, and he recommends a juried event.
That's right.
He says, a jury, and let me explain real quick. A juried event is one where the event coordinators are very specific about what's going on there. They don't just let anybody in. They say, no, you really need to have your tent needs to be like this. Your clothing needs to be like this. Your accoutrements, your camp equipment should be, up to snuff. And in some ways, you can look at that and say, oh no, I don't want to go. I don't want people looking at my stuff and telling me I'm wrong. But he's coming at it from the juries are there to help you get it right.
Right.
And if you take it from that point of view of no, they're trying to help me. They're not trying to hurt me. They're not trying to keep me out. They want to help me get better. And if we look at juried things that way, and obviously some jury judges and might not approach this the best way. They,
with less tact,
right.
Yeah.
And but really underneath it, The idea here is to help everyone get better at it and to have a level that is happening at the event, so you don't feel like, oh, these guys over there, they aren't even trying, they don't care.
That's one reason why, we recommend so strongly, don't don't let the first thing you do be that you go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. You get connected first, and let other people who are experienced at this help you decide what it is you need in light of what you want to do. There's one other word too that Billy used, accoutrements. He's just talking about supplies, equipment.
Camp equipment. Yeah.
Right. We had someone walk into the store a few weeks ago, and she was just getting started with, how many children did she have? 7, I think.
Yeah,
7 children. And boy, she had some really good questions about what's acceptable, what's not. I don't want to make a mistake. And we were helping her. She was actually connecting.
Yeah, she was doing a great job.
Yeah, and one thing that she was talking about was, I don't have the right tent. Oftentimes these events or historic sites will allow people to come even with modern tents. And there's a special place off to the side, out of view from
Modern
the public.
camping.
Right. And that's perfectly an acceptable
legitimate,
option. Yeah, a legitimate option where you don't have to have everything all at once.
Another little bit that came out of his, if you heard that, he talked about exclusion or excluding people is not what this is about. It's not what Living History is about. It isn't a exclusive club and we only allow these people in and we don't allow those people, but it's very accepting. And most of these communities are very accepting of new people. Let's talk about the individual ways these communities are going to help individuals. It doesn't matter whether it's a historic site that you're going to be working with or a local group or even another kind of group. What are the kinds of things, the kind of help that you're going to get or could get?
Well, Billy talked about clothing.
Right. Loaner clothing.
And equipment. And you will find that too with some of the more, especially some of the more progressive groups, and even some of the I like to affectionately call them the old guard, the guys who've been at this for 30 or 40 years, and they have this equipment and clothing sitting around that they have kind of moved out of. Or it's slightly worn out or whatever, and
sometimes it's just their first or they've gotten their kit better and better. Mm-hmm. Not that their old kit was bad necessarily, but they can use that to loan out to get people started.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this idea of just plain really good ideas that you're going to get from these people about. Whether it's there are all these different facets of ideas, the kinds of things you should be doing, the kinds of groups that you could join, the kinds of things you can do, and the skills you need to learn, the equipment ideas, and there's a myriad of great things to do.
The persona that
right.
you kind of land into or develop,
right?
Getting feedback about that as well, yeah,
and just plain straight on encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs someone to say, no, you can do it. You can do it. And
right.
and come alongside you. And when you fail at, I tried to make a canteen, or you try to do all these different things and you aren't able to do it, they're there to say, no, it's all right. Or you can do it this way. Or, to pick you up if you fall down.
Well, and also other connections. Mm-hmm. Where if this organization or people specifically within the organization or the group or your experienced reenactors, they know other people, and those people are going to have ideas or equipment or clothing or
research.
Yeah,
especially if you're interested in one little pocket. And your local group isn't doing that, but somebody in that local group may know somebody who's doing something exactly like you're interested in or has special knowledge about it. So that's a really good thing. we do have to look at this as building on the shoulders of others.
Yeah, you don't have to start at zero. This is a way, the quickest way, really, I believe, of getting a really good start.
Right. In fact, shooting right to the, hey, I know what I'm doing, in a real hurry.
Yeah.
Because without it, you're stumbling around in the dark. You don't know if you're doing anything right, and it could be that somebody right next door knows exactly how it works, and you can shave a whole bunch of time off of figuring this out. So I had a question. I wrote it down, and that is, can it be done? Can you do this without a local support group?
You can. It's going to be more challenging.
Right. I mean, I was thinking without a local support group, you're left with nothing but virtual encouragement, basically.
Right.
You're left with nothing but Facebook, forums, asking questions on YouTube videos or in blogs.
Your own research.
Your own research. You can get started by building your own group, but wow, that is very, very, very difficult.
Especially if you're a beginner. It's one
Yeah,
thing
exactly.
if you're seasoned and you're already on the backside of a learning curve. But if you're a beginner and you're wanting to start your own group, that is challenging.
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the reasons why earlier on I mentioned that even if the local group isn't doing something exactly like what you want to do and you want to form your own group in the future, get started with them first. Get started with them first so you, again, get your feet under you. And then when you feel like you've got enough experience and, yes, now I want to do, Spanish colonial period and no one in your area is doing that. Now you have enough experience that you can build that group on your own. And so that's one of those things. You really need to get those connections first before you kind of run out there on the limb and do a whole bunch of work and find that you still don't know exactly what you need to be doing.
Right. Well, John, I think we're to a point where we can wrap this up. I want to point people's attention to livinghistorynetwork.com. Because that is ever changing. Every day people are putting more events, more group information on there. And we're really getting serious about promoting that among specific groups. And we hope to see that just really take off here in the near future. And the more information we can get put on that, the more valuable of a tool that's going to be for people. So I'm very excited about that. Livinghistorypersona.com, .net, .com, livinghistorypersona.com, where we have several ideas, persona ideas, very generic, not specific people, but so that's a great resource as well.
And local groups like that may have a resource like that, or they should be working on a resource very like that, so that when new people come in, it's like, here's a good place to start.
Yeah, I hope you find this information helpful. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Thank you so much for taking the time with us today and covering this material. We're excited about getting you started in living history. This is a lot of fun, amazing people to work with. So thank you so much for your effort and your time. Thanks for watching.
My mentor for living history, her name is Priscilla Johns. She has passed, but she taught me the textile end of it, which is very, very important when you're doing living history, because you need to know the materials that you need to have for your outfits, and also, what is more appropriate for the time period opposed to, another time period. Today we're doing 1812. How is that different from Revolutionary War? How is that different from Civil War? What materials would be appropriate for the time period, and knowing what you should be wearing or not wearing. And so she was very important to me, and she taught me how to make things, as well as how to, actually spin the wool, and also how to construct things. And so she is one that I will, honor and respect as my mentor for living history.